Hiya, and welcome to this week's podcast. I have been coaching a lot in Reddit because, especially, I see some young vets in there struggling, asking questions, and there's something that keeps coming up, which is like, what do you wish you had known before you became a vet? And I reposted this to other platforms, and it got really popular. So I thought I would riff a bit on it on the podcast as well because it's like very short form on the social platforms, right? And I think it's really important both for the vet students that are out there, for the new grads, so they don't feel so alone, and also for more seasoned people like me and other people my age, who are a lot of the vets that I coach, because we kind of look back and we feel like we have failed in some way, or feel like we should have done it differently, or feel like we didn't really know and we can't put our finger on what we did wrong or why we burned out, or maybe we're not sure why. And I feel like having this overview of things we basically should have known before we became vets is really helpful for your own mental health, right? Even if you've already been through it and you failed and crashed and burned and are kind of on your way up again, on your way away, to kind of understand like why you might have burned out in hindsight, no? So these are the five major reasons I have, and I might come up with five more and do another episode on them, but these are the five that came to me in that moment, what I'm kind of like channeling. So the first thing I wish I had known before I became a vet, before I was thrown into the trenches with all my enthusiasm and passion, was that we can't save them all. And this sounds like such a cliche. You can't save them all. We hear it and we're like, yeah, yeah, but we don't really take it in, do we? Because we think that if we just follow the textbooks, we follow this flow chart saying, oh, they come in with this history, then you need to check for this, and then you do these diagnostics, and then you kind of know what to do, and they can be saved. There is a part of us that does believe that if we were just good enough, if we were enough, if we were able to see what the animal has, be able to just choose the right diagnostics, then we will be able to save them. And a part of this is also not making it mean that when we don't save them, we then make it mean that we are bad vets, that it's a huge failure. It means something about us, about our quality as vets. Because in vet med, I mean, we lose quite a lot of patients, don't we? They don't live that long, depending on what species and breed they are. Dogs and cats, they don't live hundreds of years. So it makes sense that comes a point where they start getting issues and we can't bring them back from. No, like if you have a malignant hemangiosarcoma in the spleen, I mean, what are you going to do, right? You can maybe give them 3 months more. Like, I don't recommend it personally. I feel like putting a dog through such a major operation only for 3 months, to me, it's not worth it. I wouldn't do it with my dog, but we all different, no? So there are a lot of animals we cannot save, and it's important before we start out as new vets that we don't take this personally, that we don't make it mean that we are bad vet, and that we don't think we should have saved them when it was actually never a possibility. The second thing I really wish I had known before I became a vet was that I am not responsible for other people's emotions. If an owner is really sad, angry, frustrated, upset, distressed, anxious, I can for sure hold space for that owner. I can make them see that I understand them, that I see them, I can listen to them. I can say things like, well, you gave them a good life. I always say, when we do a euthanasia, I always say, you did the right thing for the animals. You weren't thinking of yourself. You were thinking of them. Even if sometimes they come in and I'm thinking, you should probably have thought of the animal maybe like 3 months earlier, but never mind. No, what's the point now in upsetting you more? But at the end of the day, I cannot be responsible for their feelings. So when the animal dies or something happens and they feel guilty, or they feel like a lot of frustration or sadness, even if sometimes, and this always happens, like, I don't know, 50% of euthanasias we have, either their kid is sick or their dad just died, or something horrible just happened, they just lost whatever, and they're extra sad on top of that, and you can feel it. No, you really feel sorry for them, but you're not responsible for their emotions. And this is really important, to be able to putting a wall up sounds very like robotic, like I'm just not going to feel anything, but that's not the case. The case is being able to separate your own feelings from their feelings, and you not feel extra bad because you should have made them happy, or you should in some way have either saved the animals or be able to say something that will make the owners feel better. That's just not a thing. That's not on you. You don't know the history they come in with. You don't know their past and how much grief they maybe have on board from some child abuse from 40 years ago. You just don't know, which means that you can do your bit. So listen, hold space, be there for them, say the comforting words, and then the rest is on them, right? It's on them. You cannot be held responsible for their feelings. And this was really big for me because I'm a people pleaser. My dad was an alcoholic, and to me it was like my safety depending on people not getting angry, upset around me. So I feel like a lot of responsibility, and it's important that you notice these patterns in yourself so you're able to separate that out. Let's see. The third thing I wish I'd known before I became a vet was that it is imperative to create and to uphold healthy, realistic boundaries. And that is both towards the clients, towards yourself, towards your colleagues, towards your boss. Like, really know where your center is. Really know like what you stand for. Really know what to where is your work, to where's my bit in this, and when are people asking me to do stuff that's not really mine. I'm not saying being a bitch and don't help anybody else with something that's not yours. I'm putting, blankets in the wash all the time, which is not really my job, right? But I do it when I have space for it and I have energy for it. If I have 1,000 notes to write, right, and the nurses and the assistants don't have those notes to write, I'm not gonna not write my notes because I feel I need to help them to do their jobs, right? Because there's so much of it. I need to finish my own first. And I'm also not, and I have like literally 3 episodes just on boundaries, but it's just the being aware of how important it is to uphold boundaries for yourself so you don't end up writing crazy notes and you just create this huge to-do list for yourself that are never going to end, and you have this perfectionism like mindset that just drives you crazy and never lets you finish anything in time because you just like you're not set boundaries for how long you're going to let tasks take, right? Or how long you're going to beat yourself up for stuff. And boundaries towards clients. So when they ask you, I want, you have to give my dog antibiotics because the old vet always did that, but you don't want to do it. Like, well, where's your center? Where are you grounded? What do you know that is true for you and what not? And what will you not accept? No, so those boundaries are so important. I let people step over me, like all over me when I first finished. And I was like, that was literally all my fault because people can ask all they want and they can ask stuff of you and they can tell you to do something all they want. They have absolutely right to do that, but you have your right to say no. The fourth thing I wish I'd known before I became a vet was that it is a fucking challenging profession. And we're not going to feel good all the time because, shit hits the fan all the time. Like animals die unexpectedly. There's horrific accidents where they get run over or like really, really stupid things where an owner accidentally gives a dog something with a toxin in it that they didn't know, and now they're to blame because the animal's going to die and is only 1.5 years old. There's so many challenges, emotional challenges, and also the owner has got no money. And can you say my dog anime with like 100 pounds? And you're like, no, I can't, and it's really, really challenging. And, sometimes we have bullying on social media, that other professions have it as well for sure, but for us it can be quite a big thing, right? Like being shamed publicly. There's just so many challenges in this profession, and we're not going to feel good all the time. Like I've said before, we're not selling sex toys to a happy couple, in a nice warm sex shop. We are literally like often like knee deep in like anal glands and upset owners and this and the other. And it's okay to not feeling great all the time. It doesn't mean that you're in the wrong profession. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that, oh, you just don't know how to cope. No, it is challenging. There's a lot of shit happening where you feel out of your depth, where you're full of self-doubt, where you get attacked verbally by owners, and like it's impossible to feel happy and great when you're in these situations, and that is completely normal. A whole other part of this is being able to then feel those emotions and process them as opposed to just pushing them away, right? Which is a whole other podcast. But just like knowing that it's okay to not feel great in this profession. It would be weird if you felt fine all the time, unless you only work vaccinating kittens. Like, lucky you then, bitch. So, but other than that, it's normal to feel, down during any day in vet med, and the trick is to know how to turn yourself around again. The fifth thing I wish I'd known before I became a vet is it is so, so important to celebrate the wins, to focus on them, to realize them, to be conscious of your wins, to really, really pull them up and look at them and see like, oh my God, like how much have I learned? Like I managed to place all these catheters today for the first time. Maybe you managed to catheterize a female dog. Like I don't think I've ever managed that. When you do your first stomach torsion, when you start specializing, when you manage that euthanasia and the owners were like completely a mess, and you managed to turn the situation around and make it into something sort of dealable with, all those wins. And even the smaller things, like you managed to not, like, let's say you started out as a new grad and you were like 2 hours late behind with your consults in the beginning. Instead of focusing on how slow you are, like every day that you're a little bit faster, notice that. Remember to celebrate when you did it a bit faster. If you keep saying to yourself, oh, like you have this fear of going in and doing bit space, then first of all, obviously accept you're going to be slower than anybody else because you haven't done that many, duh. But also when you're that little bit faster, those 5 minutes faster, or you for the first time you managed to find the ovary, which was my big thing. I could not find the bloody ovaries in the beginning, right? So, and then celebrate it. Because our brain has such a huge negativity bias, and I'll speak about that in other episodes, but it's basically your brain is trying to keep you safe, right? So it makes sense that your brain is always going to look out for the negative because you need to be aware of it so you can survive. Only it's not that helpful in this time, in this society, and in this profession, because over focusing on the negative is just going to make you feel completely overwhelmed, completely useless, fill you with self-doubt, cripple you with this imposter syndrome because you're looking at all these faults and all the ways you are slow and inadequate and how people are not happy with you, right? So it is incredibly important to learn to focus on every little win you have. Like even just waking up in the morning and celebrate that you actually managed to become a vet in the first place, that you managed to land a job maybe in the first place as well, right? That you managed to graduate, that you passed your exams, and every day that you go into work, you're being very brave, you're being very courageous in the beginning, because it is terrifying if you are like me, that you're a bit of a people pleaser, you don't really know how to set boundaries, you tend to doubt yourself, you're a bit humble. Then going in every day is terrifying because you feel like this huge responsibility and you don't actually feel you know exactly what you're doing. So you have this nagging feeling of, when are they going to find out I'm actually not that good? And let me tell you something, this thought, when are they going to find out, that you will carry along. Like that is something that if you don't learn to deal with it and you don't learn to like face it and you don't learn to focus on the positive things. I coach people that are as many years in as me, which is like I'm 22 years into the profession now, and I still sometimes will get a little of that thought, when are they going to find out I'm actually not that good. That actually has nothing to do with how much experience you have. That has to do with, are you good at celebrating your wins? Are you good at focusing on everything you're good at? Because also when you're really good at that, that means that you can take feedback easily. Because if I say to you, you know what, if when you're placing an IV catheter, I would probably like angle a little bit this way, or I would clip further up. But I do say something like this. If you have learned to focus on what you're good at, your brain is not going to panic when I tell you this, because I know for sure, like if you are very hyper focus on everything you're quote unquote not good at or not good at yet, then when you get feedback, you're going to feel very defensive. You're going to feel like it just adds to the pile of stuff you're completely inadequate at. And you're going to take it as maybe even as an attack. Like I'm telling you, you're really not good at this. Like maybe you should just let me do it. When I generally just mean, no, maybe you should clip a bit further up in case, so you can see better. So that's why celebrating our wins is so important. There's actually a few more things I want to say, But I'm thinking I don't want to make too large of an episode for this, because if this, especially for new grads, you're going to be like rushed off your feet and you don't want to spend ages listening to a podcast. So basically, the 5 things I wish I'd known before I became a vet is that we can't save them all, and that when we don't, it doesn't mean we're bad vets. That we're not responsible for other people's emotions. We can hold space for them, even if they're sad, angry, frustrated, upset with us, whatever it is. But we can't solve it for them because that is on them. That it's imperative to create healthy, realistic boundaries, both towards the clients, towards your colleagues, towards your managers, and also for yourself. You can't please everyone at all the time. That's just impossible. 4, that it's a challenging profession and we're not going to feel good all the time. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're in the wrong profession. It just means that there's a lot of challenges. If you were like a field veterinarian in the Second World War, you wouldn't feel good all the time, right? And that's fine. That doesn't mean that you're not helping a lot of animals in that moment. And number 5 is that it's really, really important to learn to focus on the wins and to celebrate them. Like, I literally didn't know how much of a negative bias our brains have, and the self-doubt and the self-criticism can be brutal if you don't learn to do this. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have anything to add, and then maybe in the next episode I can do another 5. Definitely, I want to do something about the salary, about the whole money thing. Thinking about, should you get paid for helping animals? I have one of those. So if you got something else that you think I should address, then just send me a message. I think you can just like put a feedback in the podcast. I'll put some notes in there. All right. Hope that was helpful. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.